We are recording. And I'm going to say, hey, look, this meeting's being recorded. That's fun. All right. And let me expand this so we have side by side. Awesome. Okay. So I'm going to do the thing that I do where I announce you again, and then we'll go through the thing, and it shouldn't take more than 30 minutes. And thank you for doing this again. I really, really, really appreciate it. How's my audio? Do you hear me okay?
Yeah, good.
Okay, cool. So, ready?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Hey guys, welcome back. It's Alex as usual, and I am joined today with a friend and colleague of mine, Jim Henderson, who I've known for a while now, and he has been gracious enough to come on to this webisode of MSP backup and teaching people how to plan out their insider threat strategy. He is really well known. All the people that know the things have used him, from 3-letter organizations to multi-million billion-dollar companies. They trust this man with their entire insider threat program and policies. And I am so grateful that you decided to do take 2, by the way. This is take 2. We tried this last week and it totally didn't work. So we're doing take 2 of this conversation. Jim, thank you for joining me.
No, thank you. Pleasure. You're very kind with your words there.
So I wanted to bring you on because we're actually teasing a collaboration that I can't remember if you convinced me or if I convinced you, and it might have been a little bit of both, where I know I convinced Veriato, so that was good. Veriato is the user activity monitoring security forensic tool, and they are working in conjunction with Jim to basically bring about a webinar and an in-person teaching series to help you plan out your insider threat plan, whether you are a CISO, a CTO, an MSP, or somebody that's working in a very large organization that says, hey, we need an insider threat plan. And you say, great, I'm a security guy. What's an insider threat plan? So that's why we have Jim. And I'm really excited about that. So that's why we're teasing not only the webinar, which is happening on the 13th.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll leave a link in that. And then the actual event is in West Palm Beach on October 29th on a Friday. So if you guys want to come down, brave some social distancing out in the sun under some palm trees for the weekend. We did that so that you could actually enjoy and get a whole lot of education there as well.
Fortunately for you and me, we get to do it every day, but you know.
Yeah, we're here. You guys have to come to us. So Jim, thank you again. And I just wanted to kind of jump in and start at the very beginning. Explain to the people what an insider threat plan is. In fact, not even a plan. What's an insider threat?
Well, it can be many things. There's the traditional definitions that the government has. I'll just read you one here. So Carnegie Mellon, that's a respected organization, a competitor, but a respected organization. Insider threat, the potential for an individual who has or had authorized access to an organization's assets to use their access either maliciously or unintentionally to act in a way that could negatively affect the organization. So again, authorized access to the assets of an organization, which could mean the facility, that could mean IT related resources, data, and to use that access, again, maliciously or unintentionally, that could harm the organization. Now, if we go with the National Insider Threat Policy, it basically says insider threat means the threat that an insider will use his or her authorized access, sort of the same thing, wittingly and unwittingly to harm the security of the United States. This damages can include espionage, terrorism, unauthorized disclosure of national security information. And then I'm not going to read the other two, but then you have a DoD insider threat definition, which is similar. Then you have one that was written by Defense Counterintelligence Security Agency, which is really responsible for all the defense contractors, that more or less says the same thing. But when we really look at what I call the full-blown definition, it can be a lot of different things. And when companies, what I see sometimes with my clients and my students, they first haven't defined what is insider threat. They just think it's about the data. And I don't mean this in a bad way against Veriata or any other vendors. Oh, we just go buy a tool and monitor the network. Well, monitoring the network, looking for potential problems is great, but there's so much more to it before the technical piece is, and I'll start out with a couple examples. I was just explaining this to somebody else this morning, who's more of a physical security person. And he's like, I like your analogy on a lot of this. So, for example, you have an outsider that has connections to an insider, meaning an employee. Now, that outsider who has connections to the employee on the inside, it could be a relationship or a marriage. Well, what happens when the wife has a restraining order against the husband, and because of a very valid reason, let's say he's abusive or something, and the organization knows that there is a potentially violent employee. They don't want him coming into the workplace because there have been workplace violence incidents where people have showed up and not only killed the wife or the girlfriend, but killed other employees. True story, one of my students told me that actually one of the women in their company had a restraining order. Of course, the guard had a picture of the outsider, the husband, had the tag number of the vehicle, yada, yada. And one day the car pulled up out front. They called the police. There was a happy ending to the story, but when they did open the trunk, there were a lot of guns. Now, maybe the guy was a hunter. So you can sort of see just the value in there going, Jim, come on, an outsider with connections to an insider. How's that insider threat? When the outsider comes into the workplace and commits workplace violence because of the connection, let's say I'm the husband and you're the wife, and I come in and I not only kill you or wound you. So there could be one example, if you think about it.
That's huge.
Some people sometimes go, So here's another one, bullying. So one time in my class, somebody goes, bullying, Jim, come on, how's that workplace violence? Okay, so I'm being bullied by someone, could be a male or female, and I've had enough. And I go to the CEO and I say, hey, CEO, I'm tired of being bullied. Take care of this. Well, the CEO doesn't. So I decide to take things in my own hands. And this is a true story. The employee came in, shot and killed the CEO. And I don't know if he shot and killed the bullier or wounded him, but it doesn't matter. That had a workplace violence nexus to it because he was being bullied. Nobody did anything, right? So workplace violence, employees on fighting, is that insider threat? It could be. Then we go to some of the more typical definitions of people stealing trade secrets, intellectual property, sensitive business information, research information. Then we have people who sabotage data. There was a recent one where a lady working at an organization, a business, deleted 20 gigabytes of their data. 20 gigabytes, just wiped it out. And this was during the termination process. So don't ask. Huh?
I was about to say, is that premeditated?
No, well, she was evidently being let go from the company, but whoever was letting her go didn't think to terminate her access first. So not only did she do it while she was being terminated, evidently after she was terminated, she still had access to the network. 20 gigabytes, pretty much. I don't know if it was a law firm. I'd have to go back and look. Wiped out the entire organization's data. Then we move on to things like financial, financial theft, embezzlement, bank wire fraud, overtime fraud. There's been a bunch of police officers I've seen and other organizations who, I saw one last night, Boston Police, there were some others submitting for hours work they didn't work. Either they were opportunists and saw the need that they could get away with it. Because you have to remember, in a lot of these situations, not in each and every case, these employees know how the business works. They know what they can get away with. They know their temperaments. They know what's checked and not checked, right? And so if they see an opportunity, sometimes they go for it. And a lot of cases, they get caught. So I've seen people creating fake shell companies. Now, what do I mean by that? The employees work there a while. They know that maybe invoices aren't really reconciled against the vendor. So I create a fake shell company called ABC, and I start, and let's say I'm a Veriado employee, and I start billing Veriado for services provided by ABC, and somebody just pays the bill. True story, lady at Weyerhaeuser Lumber, who had worked there 20 plus years, created a fake shell company, was billing the company to the tune of $4.5 million. So, then we move on to, I'm looking here, I'm cheating, looking at my slide deck, damage to facilities. There was a bank manager who was doing some bad things at the bank, insider threat related, embezzlement, I can't exactly remember what. Well, he sort of realized they were onto him. What did he do? He set the bank on fire.
Wow.
I'm not.
It's interesting though, because I think you're getting it really clear that it's not just the data, it's the
a lot of things.
It's the people, right? It's a human element, and that's something that I've said for years when I'm talking to people, whether I'm talking about their backup, their security stack, their insider threat plan, all of it. It's your people are your biggest liability, but they're also your biggest asset. So you have to balance that, and the human element is really what is the catalyst for all of this. So it's almost like you have to work with HR and legal and IT.
Security, physical security, right.
Yeah.
You got to work with everybody. Now, the great thing about a tool like Veriado is in many cases.
Plug in Veriado the whole time.
Yeah, I'm plugging Veriado. I mean, I've actually used the Veriado tool. I've used other tools. But
we need to get into that too. I want to see some of the other.
So with for example, with the Veriado tool and other tools, to be fair, you can have dirty word lists. Mm-hmm. So I was recently talking to a company about the concerns companies are having about the COVID vaccine mandate, and some people not wanting to take the vaccine and potentially losing their jobs. One large defense contractor I talked to said they know they're going to get a lot of false positives, but they've actually are setting up a dirty word list. What I mean by dirty words, I mean, you could have a dirty word list for violence, kill, maim, death. You might get a lot of false positives. Maybe you'll have one COVID, vaccine, mandate. So what that means is you can watch people's emails for stuff like this, and you may get some false positives, but you may get false positives, but you also may get in front of an employee who is pardon my analogy here, screw the company. I've worked here for 20 years. I'm 5 years away from retirement, and now you're going to fire me after all these years because I'm not getting a vaccine mandate, and you won't let me make the choice. Oh, and by the way, you won't even give me the option to get tested. Oh, talked to a government agency this morning who, I mean, I didn't even really think of this, but we have people with very high security clearances in government and contractors. Maybe you're told as a contractor or a govie, well, you don't get the vaccine, you're done. Are people going to cash out early, potentially sell the information to the highest bidder a foreign nation state. These are things you have to consider, because when we really get down to, like you said, insider threat is a human problem. Insider threat, people always go, what's insider threat, Jim? What do you do? I'm like, it's employee threat mitigation. Insider threat is sort of the new word, but if you really look at it, it's insider risk, it's insider threat. It's disgruntled employees. Everybody's been disgruntled at some point, maybe crossing over to more than just a disgruntled employee, to take actions against the company, which could be workplace violence, data theft, network sabotage. I mean, I saw one a couple of years ago where the gentleman didn't get the $50,000 bonus, the poor guy. He got $33,000. He wrote what was called a logic bomb. So when the clock struck 12 on, let's say today on October 5th, the logic bomb executed and wiped out the data on 17,000 workstations and 2,000 servers. Imagine if your whole network was wiped out because I was working at Veriado and I was pissed off or something. So the problem is these stories, not saying that particular examples happen every day, but there are so many examples that people don't have a clue how bad it is. Embezzlement is off the chart. I mean, data theft and trade secret theft is bad and all that, but the embezzlement is, how do I know? I think I've told you, every night I religiously go out to the Department of Justice website and look for anything related to insider threat. There is so much embezzlement in these companies that I'm talking, anywhere from, I'll just throw out a number, 15,000 to into the millions. I mean, one of the stories I have is the guy that was, let me see here if I can find it. When we talk about how damaging an incident can be. He stole like 65 million over 20 years, and 750 people lost their job. Ransomware and malware is bad. Somebody clicking on a malicious link, an untrained insider is bad. But when you look at what malicious insiders can do, they put companies out of business. I saw one recently, a packaging company. Somebody stole, I guess it was a small company, $200,000. Company went out of business. Two sisters working in a credit union went out of business. So there are so many stories which really help drive, if you know what I mean, that this is not just a hypothetical what if problem. There are Department of Justice cases where people are going to prison and being charged for all kinds of things. Blackmail, embezzlement, money laundering. These are actually people working in companies doing bad things.
And that's something that's so cool that you share a lot of stories and a lot of anecdotal proof of what an insider threat is and how to plan out an insider threat program. But I think that's something that is really cool about your specific trainings. And while it's not necessarily a sanctioned certification, it gives so much data and it gives so much information based on what you're actually trying to convey. And people can take that actionable training and apply it like same day. Like they could literally leave your course and go and spin up an insider threat program. I mean, you give stories, you give examples, you give checklists, you give.
You've seen my material. I give a handbook. Yes.
It's an.
Well, it is. It's basically, as one student called it, insider threat program in a box. You give me the checklist to evaluate the program, the checklist to evaluate, do we have insider threat mitigation strategy? You give me a checklist to sit down and talk to the CEO to get buy-in. You give me templates so I don't have to write an insider threat program operations plan from scratch. So, I always like to say before, and I don't mean this against, I'm trying to think of the right words to say it. I was a practitioner before I was a trainer. So a trainer can be good, it can convey a message, excuse me. But part of that is also having in-depth knowledge to really convey to your students more than just reading a PowerPoint. I always tell people, if you're looking for PowerPoints with pretty pictures and pretty flowers, you picked the wrong course. You're going to get material that's actionable, that you can use, that'll help you. It's just
how do you get people to buy in? Like that's my question, because I've been in the industry long enough to know that nobody wants to talk about the problem. Like they never want to be the ones that have to admit that they have an inside threat, right? Whether it's a mandate, whether it's not, and then getting the other employees to come together and accept an insider threat program, right? Like you have to get, like I said, you have to work interdepartmentally, you have to work with lawyers, you have to work with the HR, you have to work with, I mean, if you're an MSP putting this in place, you got to make sure you've got the trust of all the departments to get this in place. And then you have somehow to get the buy-in of the employees, even though technically, and this starts mincing words, you don't technically have to tell them that they're being monitored in the States. Guys, if you're listening in and you're in Sweden, Germany, Russia, or any of the other Slavic countries, you may have, it's not the same rules. But
yes, you have the European Union, because right. Monitoring over, just because you're a company here in the US, let's just pick a big company, any company. Sears is out of business. Let's say Sears had.
Did you just go Sears? Like, that's a little old school, man.
I'm showing my age.
Oh my God.
Like, well, how about Kmart? That's, but that was owned by Sears. But anyway.
Oh my God.
It's not that
relevant. I swear, guys, he's really, really smart and he picks relevant topics. Not those, though.
No, but I guess what I'm saying is in the US, you could have a user activity monitoring program. You could have policies in place that the employees know that they're being monitored. You could have login banners. So when the employee logs into the computer, you could have policies all supporting this. With the European Union, things are a little different. Just doesn't mean because you have a company here in the US that you can implement the same monitoring program. So that's a good point.
Right, but also, how do you get people
to buy in?
Right? Like, I mean, like to me, if I'm just an employee, right, and I go there 9 to 5, I do my work. I don't want to be a tattletale. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like. How do you get into their heads from?
Because they have to. You're right. Traditionally, and I don't want to pick on like the Army's program, see something, say something, but I mean, yes, it is about see something, say something. But employees have to understand this isn't about tattling. This could be potentially saving the company, saving your job. Maybe the division you work for, your friend, did something. Maybe the division goes out of business. Why? You knew something, you didn't want to say something. So, the other problem too, I guess that I want to add is that the way an insider threat program should work, or let's even before we have an insider threat program, how we deal with employees, it should be not reactive, but proactive. If Alec has a problem, she should be able to voice those concerns to her manager. Companies need to listen a little better and start treating people as just a body. We're all humans, whether we have concerns about the mandate, concerns about a bad performance review, concerns about a manager who is clearly treating me bad but has treated other employees bad. I call it the disgruntlement level 1 to 4. You're sitting there, Alex, and you're smoldering. You're upset about something. Okay, maybe that'll blow over. Maybe you go to phase 2. Now you're starting to almost ignite. I mean, smoldering might be a little bit of smoke. Now you're getting to the point, a little bit of flame. Now you're hitting disgruntlement level 3. You're beyond just being upset. You're about to ignite. And by the time you hit stage 4, you're about to ignite. Now, what does ignite mean? To a lot of different people, employees can be a lot of different things. Filing a grievance against your manager, stealing data, committing workplace violence, or maybe just finding another job. But the problem is, I see a lot of what I see, and this is a word I use a lot, is you need collaboration between physical security. Well, who are the closest people to the employees? The supervisors. And I'll give you a good story here in a minute. But you need the supervisors, you need physical security, you need HR. If you're going to put in a program, you need legal, you need the CIO, IT department. So when I talk about the importance of collaboration, very large defense contractor, I knew their program, I knew somebody that worked on it. And this gentleman was speaking at my National Insider Threat Special Interest Group meeting. And he was trying to explain to the people the importance of getting buy-in and support from everybody, right down to the managers and the employees. In this particular case, they had great monitoring tools, great program, great working group, the perfect picture of an insider threat program. The manager had a concern about his employee. The manager chose not to say anything. Why? Because he valued his employee and was scared that if he said something, he would lose him. Maybe he would be fired. What did the employee do? Now, before I go with the punchline, which is bad, if the manager had spoken up, maybe the insider threat program and other departments could have gotten in front of the problem. The manager chose to say nothing. The employee killed somebody. Now, he didn't kill somebody at work, he killed somebody on the outside. Now, I never really got the final story because at the time I was told the story, it was being investigated. It literally just happened weeks before. So you can see right there, great monitoring tools, great program, great working group. When departments play judge and jury and sit on what I call the nuggets, that's where the problems start. Because HR is like, oh, I privacy, and I don't want to be picking on HR or IT. HR doesn't need to know it. Usually, in the majority of these cases, somebody knew something but didn't say anything. So,
That is
I mean, here's a class.
I don't want to end on that, but I know we're drawing to our time. So I want to do 2 things. One, I want to ask you craziest story you've ever experienced creating somebody's insider threat plan. And then I want to plug your webinar and your course again, because that's the teaser. That's why we're here right now.
Well, craziest
story.
Well, I guess
don't say the Snowden one, because I like the Snowden one, but leave that for the people that want to come in.
Well, I mean, I could, who would think somebody on an insider threat program would go bad? So here's one. Government agency, while I didn't actually support that agency, I heard this through somebody. I was going to go to work for this agency, and I was interviewed by a person who worked on this program. She was a contractor. So I was going to be a contractor working at this agency, working, for the company she worked for, right? Of course, we would have worked for the same company if I had taken the job. So I didn't take the job and heard months later she was let go. She used the insider threat monitoring tool for the insider threat program at the government agency to monitor the government CISO, because their views were different. She didn't like what he was doing. Now, I don't know what she didn't like he was doing. I don't know if she was trying to witch on him, but a contractor at a government agency using the monitoring tool to monitor a government employee because she wanted to. How crazy is that? So people on insider threat programs go bad, but that's another thing.
We need checks and balances is what you're saying.
Yes, and so in the course, that's another template I give in the course. I call it a code of ethics non-disclosure agreement. And this isn't what normal people sign when they join the company. This is for anybody supporting the program. So HR, security, IT, everybody signs this. And if Alex is supporting the program and she steps out of bound, well, depending on what you do, up to including termination.
That is crazy.
Yep.
Why didn't you take the job?
It was before I heard the story, because I wasn't quite sure really what I was going to be doing there. It was going to be on the insider threat program, but I really couldn't get clear definition, which is sometimes happens with contracting jobs. So I just decided not to take it, which is probably now just as well.
Yeah, I don't.
Oh, wait a minute. And then the second part of that story is also they were monitoring 4 people using the tool. The tool went dark. They're pretty sure that somebody on the insider threat program tipped off one of the people that were doing something bad on the network, and the tool went dark, meaning there was no activity.
Stop it. Was it this? Do you think that it was the same? I mean, this is just speculation, but do you think it was the same woman that was watching?
She had left.
Oh, she'd already left. So she had
somebody else.
So there was a mole inside the system, and then she was just another. She wasn't even a mole.
Another one.
Oh,
it was 2. Yeah. So
government agencies. This is like 3-letter organization type stuff.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, it's, I could sit there probably for hours and tell stories that would really, really, these aren't conspiracy theory stories. These are real stories.
That people being dumb.
Yeah. I mean, from not just people bad on insider threat programs, it's just, between doing my research every night, and I've got to say, the NITSIG, my special interest group, the National Insider Threat, I hear stories all the time from my members. And I'm like, God, just when I thought I heard the worst story, you go, wow, that's a good one. And it doesn't mean the real bad ones happen all the time, but there's a potential there for a lot of things to happen in companies when they don't collaborate, when they don't share, when they truly don't understand what this whole insider threat program concept, insider threat mitigation strategy. It's not, I don't want to downplay the importance of it all, but is a gentleman I just got off the phone with does physical security. I was giving him a quick overview, and he said, we connected on LinkedIn. He says, I thought this was a more of an InfoSec problem. I'm like, no, it's not. It's physical. It's everybody. So anyway. That's
crazy. All right. Well, Jim, you always give me so much to think about, and it makes my head spin. So hopefully
That's my job. I've got to get your head spinning.
I'm going to unwind it and then actually attend the webinar. And then obviously the 1-day training, I will be there as well. But for anybody listening in, if you want to get in touch with Jim outside of the webinar or the training, or if you want to take the training, information will be linked below. If you are mandated to get some sort of an insider threat program, which I'm assuming if you found this video, you're probably interested in it, whether it be for the profit, whether it be for actually, guiding customers or organizations through the process. Because I swear, since the pandemic, which obviously we don't want to, say the name all the time on video, but since that has happened, remote workforces, there's so many more doors for your data to leave than there ever were before. So not only do you have to protect from the hacker perspective, you have to have backup on deck, you have to have cloud backup, you have to have insider threat program. Like, it's mind-boggling what you have to have just to stay in business and then to thrive. So this is going to be amazing. I'm excited for it. Jim, thank you, as always.
Thank you.
And thank you for doing this ×2. Last time we tried doing it last week, I had screaming, sad, feverish baby that was trying to take all of the attention. So now, anyways, I will see you soon, sir. Thank you for your time.
Okay.
And if you
I
have
will.
a link below.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye. All right. Better? Cool. And